It being 5:30, the agenda duly posted and quorum present, I'm going to call this meeting to the Shelburne Selectboard to order. Welcome everyone this evening. We have a bit on the agenda tonight, and we'll get started with acceptance of the minutes of August 14th. Rick, have you had the opportunity to look them over?
Indeed, I have. I found all of the content to be accurate. Under Highway Department rote, ROTE, 2 was the only minor thing that jumped out at me, but otherwise looked good to me.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to accept them?
I will move the acceptance of those minutes.
I will second that. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call this matter to vote. Rick?
Aye.
Myself as aye, the motion passes. All right, moving on to department liaison reports. Would you care to pass along any thoughts, Rick?
Sure. Veterans Services Director is on vacation, so a minor update on that. Consequently, I have not heard if the union did anything with trying to fill that position or whether it went on to be posted to fill that job. Police Department, the new cruiser is expected to be in service by the end of October. The merger is about 90% complete, according to the chief. He's currently working on completion of a system for data reporting. There's apparently some backup. He's got it done through May, so continuing to work on that. There's also a substation planned for the village in the works, and the Buckland Town Administrator and the chief are working on details for that. And then the chief just mentioned that we're getting closer to fall and asked me to remind folks that slippery roads from wet leaves, extra traffic from foliage, kids going back to school, animals, wildlife getting ready for winter, crossing the roads, etc., that we should all just be extra careful in our driving as fall comes to join us. Lastly, Town Hall. Last week I met with the collector and the town administrator to discuss two things: tax delinquencies and an assessor treasurer office process disconnect regarding addresses versus mailing addresses. Many of the taxpayers have a different town's mailing address, like Little Mohawk Road. Their mailing address is Coleraine with a Coleraine zip code, and there's plenty others. What we found out is that the assessor's office records, where they showed Coleraine or Greenfield, got changed back to Shelburne Falls. Consequently, tax bills were returned to the treasurer. And when the assessors give the treasurer the new annual billing, it overwrites her addresses. So didn't see them coming. And we've got a full court press going on to correct this situation, get the assessor's records back to the correct actual mailing address, and try to nip this in the bud. I'll keep you posted as to progress. On delinquencies, each year we budget based on anticipated revenues, of course. As of August 22nd, we have over 29,000 delinquent. Fiscal 22, and just under 127,000 fiscal year 23. That's over 156,000 past due tax revenues. Steps are in place automatically to remind people, called a friendly reminder through the process right up to a demand notice. The bottom line is we have 4 properties that the town owns through tax title process. There's 4 more in land court, and it's feeling like time. These have been on the rolls for been town owned and not on the tax rolls for some time. And the thought is that we might want to consider looking at putting those that are ready to be auctioned into auction, get them sold, get them back productive and back on the tax rolls. And I'd like to ask that we add that to the agenda for our next meeting for a discussion.
Okay.
And that's
Anything
it.
else?
That's it.
Terry, do you have anything you'd like to add for the town hall itself and such?
Just today, we had the elevator inspector from the state on site, and we have received final approval, and we're
Yeah.
free to use the elevator.
Oh, yes. It's been a good, long process, but I'm glad to be there. All right, Andrew, welcome. And do you have any thing you'd like to pass along?
No.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to start off with the senior center. Senior center had applied for a grant, but did not get the technology grant that was in the paper that the other day that talked about technology and things. She is going to reapply for that same grant. We have an upcoming meeting. Let's see, what is it? On the 13th, where there's going to be like a safety, the fire department's gonna be there and the police, and we're going to be talking, and emergency management director talking about planning for emergencies with elders, and their hope that a lot of people will be able to attend that. And they're continuing their fun stuff as well, where they're going out to dinner or luncheons. And September is a mystery ride, so they don't know where they're going, other than there will be dessert. Which is an important thing, I think, is for anyone. The highway department, on the other hand, is where a lot of things are going on, and I'm going to lump a lot of things together under highway. As you know, the Bartlesford Bridge is closed, and it's up to the towns of Shelburne and Conway to figure out how to go about repairing it. There is monies out there. Mark has the name of a person we should contact, and I can't remember right off the top of my head. But I was thinking that perhaps we should meet with the Conway Select Board, or have me meet with the Conway Select Board to see what their thoughts are. Perhaps create a lead town for this, because if one town's doing one thing, another town is doing another thing, it could get complicated trying to apply for the same grant from two different agencies and for the same project. So I was wondering if we can consider that and how we would like to go about doing that. Because though, yes, it does impact Shelburne residents, it does impact Conway residents a lot more, given that this is one of their primary ways in and out of town, heading towards Greenfield or Route 2. And given the conditions of several of the roads secondary to the flooding in July, which leads me to the next topic, the flooding in July. The emergency management director has advised myself and a few other people that the federal government minimum threshold was not met for the county. Therefore, MEMA is unable to provide funding for any of the repair work that is done secondary to the storms that caused the washout on Brook Road and Frankton Road, no, Patton Hill Road, and a few other places. Now, this doesn't impact Shelburne as much, though the Brook Road repair is going to be somewhat costly. I can only sympathize to the towns of Conway and Deerfield for the millions of dollars that they're going to have to figure out how to come up with. So that's very disappointing news there. We are working on Lucy Fisk Road, and we expect paving to be done by the end of September. And speaking of pavement, Mark and I met with the state regarding the state numbered routes regarding Bridge Street and Maple Street, South Maple Street, reclaiming and paving. They indicated that that project will not be done until next spring, with the deadline of the end of June for it to be completed. They're going to have an on-site visit so they can have a better understanding of some of the things that we were talking about, and they can begin their process. And lastly, I think I had mentioned before, but our person who does winter snow and ice removal in the village has given his notice saying that he doesn't feel he wants to continue doing that job this winter. And we're going to be in need of hiring someone to do shoveling and so forth. And I noticed we had in the paper advertisements for clerical positions and the Cal Gym coordinator director. I was wondering if the board will authorize the town to advertise for a winter laborer for the village to take care of the sidewalks and the bridge and such during inclement weather. So that's what I have, and I will either we can act on the request to advertise now, or we can bring it up under new business.
I think we should do it now. We've got a
Okay.
couple minutes till the first appointment.
Yep.
So I will move that we place that advertisement and start looking.
All right, excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and second to begin advertising for part-time winter help for downtown shoveling and snow clearing. Is there further discussion?
Who is the person who is retiring from that position?
George, what's George's last name, Terry?
George Sinister.
George Sinister.
Thank you.
He's also the one that comes in and does summer help with trimming guardrails and such. And he feels the warmer weather is better for him than being out when it's 10 below zero trying to clear that. So any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, we'll call this matter to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Aye.
Rick and Andrew say aye. I also will say aye. Too many ayes in that word. And the motion passes unanimously. It being 5:43, and our first appointment's at 5:45. Is Jim here with us?
Yes, I'm here. Jim.
Okay, very good.
All right.
So we'll go on to you next. So Jim, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here. I represent the Memorial Hall Association. I'm currently the president of the association. As you know, we've been working for some time on our capital campaign to renovate Memorial Hall, and but this is really a joint effort with the town. I wanted to spend just a minute sort of talking about that relationship, because it explains why, in some ways, why I'm here in the first place. The grant that was given by the Mass Cultural Council was initiated by me personally on behalf of the Memorial Hall Association, but the grant was submitted in the name of the town because the town seemed much more logical as a recipient of the grant funds. And so the grant was awarded to the town, the money goes to the town. The town has also, as you know, put $150,000 aside to contribute to improvements to the hall, and has also spent the money recently to.
Thank you, Terry.
Well, as I was saying, this is a joint effort on behalf of the town and the hall, Memorial Hall Memorial Hall Association and the town itself. And our interests fortunately almost completely coincide. The town is interested obviously in improving and maintaining the hall. Memorial Hall Association has put a lot of effort into this, and we're also very interested in this. But because there are two entities involved, there are a couple of issues about coordination of efforts, and I'm here to come up with a couple of those. One is that we need to renew the lease or recommence the lease. We had a lease between Memorial Hall Association and the town that was suspended because of the COVID pandemic. And in order for us to resume our programming and get things back on the road, we're planning to recommence that lease starting October 1st. I think this may have been brought to the board's attention, but if not, I wanted to bring it up explicitly because there's an issue related to that, which is that even though we would like to begin the lease once again on October 1st, because that's our programming won't start until then, we do need to have access to the hall prior to October 1st for a couple of very important things. We need to clean the hall, obviously, and we also need to repair some of the equipment that's there, or if it's not repairable, replace it. And that all really needs to be begun in well before October 1st, so that we have time to make sure it's all in order by the time the first program happens, which I think is going to be October the 6th. It's going to be a great program, by the way, but I won't go into that on the select board's time. So I was hoping that the board would give approval for us to, first of all, to formally approve our recommencing the lease on the same terms that were in effect prior to the pandemic, effective October 1st, but also give representatives of the Memorial Hall Association the opportunity to enter the hall prior to that time to do necessary work to reopen the hall, and specifically to inspect and repair the equipment and also to clean it. But there may be other chores we have to do so that we can be ready for the public by the 6th of October.
All right, thank you. Andrew or Rick, do you have questions or thoughts?
I will make that motion so that we can begin the discussion.
But there's a motion to allow access to the Memorial Hall Theater on the second floor prior to the full renewal of the lease on October 1st. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Motion's been made and seconded, and now discussion.
Andrew?
Andrew?
I think that I'm in favor of both actions. I mean, in a normal landlord-tenant relationship, the landlord takes responsibility for many of the tasks that Jim is describing. But because we have had this somewhat unique partnership between the Memorial Hall Association and the town, where both are working together to improve the hall, and the MHA is taking responsibility for a good bunch of the operating equipment in the hall, the projectors, the refrigerator, and other things. Those are the items that currently need attention, and also cleaning. You know, that the MHA, you know, is doing things that, you know, if we're a normal landlord situation, there would be more things the landlord is doing. Of course, as landlord, we have taken on a big project, which is keeping the elevator going. And that is really the linchpin of what makes the hall usable. So that is a big contribution that the town is making. But I would say that having the town work flexibly in partnership with the Memorial Hall is in our mutual interest. So I support both of those pieces of the motion to reactivate the lease and to allow the MHA to continue to spruce things up and get ready for the season starting in October.
Thank you, Andrew. Rick, do you have thoughts?
I did ask at the last meeting to hold off until this for approval because I had not previously been involved in the lease. I have read it. I have no problem with it whatsoever, and I would support its resumption at the appropriate time, October 1st, if that's it. My only question about access prior to, is there insurance, is there liability for the town to have the tenants in with multiple people before they actually start the lease? Is that an issue or not an issue?
That I think is a Terry question.
Memorial Hall Association does carry insurance in accordance with the lease agreement. So between the town's insurance and Memorial Halls, I don't think it would be a problem.
To have them have access prior to the start of the lease?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have no problem.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself as aye, the motion's unanimous. So Jim, you're set there. Is there anything else we can do for you?
Yeah, there's another issue. It's the same kind of coordination of efforts thing. And this was a little more confusing because we still haven't definitively decided exactly who's doing what. But we wanted to get the ball rolling here with the approval of the select board. And that is that we think it's time to begin the process of issuing an RFP for an architect so that as we're going along, we can have an architect to advise us on what needs to be done with the hall. And so the thought was that we might want to get that process going, but it's confusing because the grant was to the town and work will be done by the town because work being done on a town building. So it's really the town of Shelburne that is going to be involved in retaining the architect and doing the work. We have grant monies to pay for an architect, but it's really something, an action that the town of Shelburne has to take. Memorial Hall Association is not literally sponsoring or doing the work or responsible for the work because it's work on the hall structure itself. So I was hoping that the board would authorize my beginning discussions, I guess, with Terry initially about how we can get that process going to issue an RFP for an architect. The Council of Governments has said they would provide technical support for the RFP process, but that's another issue that we have to sort of work into the mix. But it didn't make sense to even start down that road until I had appeared before the board and said that this is something we want to do. And is there any issue on the select board's part with our starting to do that?
Okay, thank you. Rick or Andrew?
Yeah, Bob, but just by way of sort of providing some context for that request, the town has engaged, as you all know, in this capital campaign project in partnership with the Memorial Hall Association. And so together we wrote this Mass Cultural Facilities grant that Jim really took the lead on, Terry was instrumental in, and we succeeded in securing $183,000 at the last special town meeting. The voters of the town completed, I think, a 4-year pledge process of appropriating $150,000, which can match that grant. And the town has also now put 110, I think, into the elevator renovation. And so all of those public funds line up to about $450,000. The Memorial Hall Association is in the first stages of launching the sort of private side of that capital campaign with the ambitious goal of raising at least $750,000 for a $1.2 million overall renovation of the theater over the next 3 years. But our immediate goal is to match that cultural facilities grant within the next 18 months and then use that funding about $500,000 or so to replace the flooring and the seats and the green room. That's really the second phase of the capital campaign. Phase one, Terry has already completed, which is restoring the elevator. Phase two is replacing the seats and the floor and the green room. And phase three is really addressing the things that will make the hall really attractive, both to professional users, sound, lighting equipment, stage, lift, and various other components, a fireproof curtain, and a number of other things. So it's a large project, but the good news is we only have to raise another $35,000 to match the cultural facilities grant. So we're really on the path already to completing that in pretty short order, and then moving on to raise the rest of the money. So with the completion of that match, we will have $360,000 to work with to begin the process. So that's really the basis for beginning the process of hiring an architect who can then help actually write the architectural plans and engineering specs to begin that phase two project. So that's really what we're up to in this partnership between the town and the Memorial Hall Association. But we're thinking that by getting the hiring process going, the architect can actually be helpful in the private capital campaign that we'll be doing over the fall and winter, because we will have more information to provide to donors in that process. Terry, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes, just so that I'm clear, you're looking to hire an architect to oversee the second phase or the
That's
first
correct.
phase that'll be funded by the grant.
Yes,
So before we can even accept the grant or sign the contract, we need to have we need to come up with 37,000 to meet the 187,000.
that's correct. Yeah.
So would you be looking to have myself, you, possibly Jim, work with the FERCog to develop an RFP for architectural services?
That's right. That's step one.
Okay.
Step
right,
one
and
of phase two.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful clarification.
Yes,
And
thank you, Terry. Rick?
Sorry, go ahead.
I listened to all the itemizations you gave there, and it sounds wonderful. What specific, I'm still having trouble, architect. What of that list you just went through do you need an architect for? Or is there another structural matter that would require an architect? Just curious.
No, the architect that we would be issuing this RFP for would be brought on board for the scope of the phase two project, which is about $500,000 worth of work. And that is those three components that I outlined, which is replacing the floor, replacing the seats, and renovating the backstage, what's called the green room. It's a little wooden structure hanging off the back of the hall that has no bathroom in it at present. So the performers currently have to go either outside the building and around to the front, or they have to walk through the audience in order to use the facilities. And that has placed a limit on our ability to attract professional talent into the hall. So there is architectural design work involved in those all three of those renovations to make them happen.
Good,
and
thanks.
Engineering plans.
Thank you.
All
I
right,
have one-
so go ahead, Terry.
Just one last question. How soon do you anticipate raising the 37,000? I'm just thinking from a fiscal standpoint to advertise for services when we haven't even signed a contract because we're not meeting the requirements of that grant award.
My suspicion in working with the Memorial Hall group that is currently launching that project is that we can do that within 1 to 3 months.
Okay,
Jim?
I just wanted to add one thing. It's actually possible that the match has already technically been accomplished, because I think there's a good probability that the money spent on repairing the elevator could be counted towards the matching grant if we need to tap those funds sooner rather than later. So we've chosen not to do that too soon, because we think that it's useful to just sort of keep the idea of a matching grant out there as long as we can legitimately. But if worst comes to worst, we can certainly push the envelope a little and see through the Cultural Council whether we have in fact already met the requirements of the match through the elevator repairs.
okay.
But even if not, I think we can quickly move toward that 30.
All right, so doesn't sound unreasonable. So is there a motion?
Well, I would move that the board authorize Terry to work with Jim and with me to initiate the process of engaging the FERCog to help us write an RFP to hire an architect for the phase 2 renovations.
I'll second
Yeah.
that.
Motion's been made second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call this matter to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Myself as aye. Motion passes unanimously. Jim, is there anything else we can help you with?
Yeah, just very briefly, I really, it's my fault for not mentioning this earlier, but Terry's help was absolutely essential to getting this grant approved by the Mass Cultural Council. She helped me by supplying information that only she could supply, and really had to do a lot of work to fill in the blanks that I couldn't fill in so we could get in. And I think she's going to continue, unfortunately, to have to be a partner in our continuing to do this. But fortunately, she seems willing to continue down the road with us. And I wanted to thank her and thank the select board for your support in making this happen. So that's all I need to. Thank you.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Jim.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, and we'll move on. And looking through all the names, is Kate here for the grant funded tree planting?
Yes,
She is.
hi,
Okay, very good. Hi, welcome.
thank you.
And well, begin, please.
Oh, sure. So I live in Buckland and I serve as the Woodlands Partnership Coordinator for the Woodlands Partnership of Northwest Massachusetts through New England Forestry Foundation, which has the administrative agent contract for that. This grant that I'm discussing was already in process before I started this job. They've planted trees for riparian restoration in Conway along the South River and in Williamstown along bike path and housing authority sites out there. There's still some money left in the grant and some sites that need to be chosen. And the Conway students in the School of Design did a riparian restoration report. And in that report, it identified the field behind Buckland Shelburne Elementary as being the highest ranked site in Shelburne Falls. So I don't know if you've been given a copy of this, but I sent it to Terry and I drew up a little report to what kind of trees would be good in the site, where they would be. And I have met with the school committee and the building committee, and they had some concerns about like getting equipment through and maintenance. So I'll be adjusting the trees that are along the parking lot there in the back. But there's 2 sites that we'd like to plant trees, and one of those sites is on town-owned land. The northern edge of that field there butts right up against Route 2. So it's also on the list to talk to the Conscom just to make sure that they're on board with it. But, you know, it's not up to the school whether or not we can plant there. It's up to the town. So I was hoping to hear any feedback you might have or questions, and hoping that you would, you know, approve it pending the approval, the final approval of the school committee when I meet with, I'm going again when they meet in 2 weeks or so.
I know I've looked through it and understanding the locations, you know, for the northern part with bank stabilization and erosion along the hiking trails becomes important. They're concerned for the southern end by the teachers' parking lot. Do they need to be spaced out more, or what?
I think just fewer trees, because when you go towards Mechanic Street there's some iffiness with like the boundary lines, I know, with the neighbors. And then also making sure that a mower coming from the parking lot, you know, can easily move around. They're going to be pretty widely spaced. I think fewer trees by the parking lot, because, you know, mowing around trees is added labor. That was something Robin Pease of the building committee mentioned as a concern. So I can send the updated plan that I'll be sending to the building committee to you. But we're trying to get these trees in this fall, ideally. So just, yeah, so that's where we're at.
All right, Rick or Andrew, do you have questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead, Andrew.
One is just a point of information. I noticed in I live on Mechanic Street, a few houses up from the school, and I noticed that the field in the front side that has the band shell in it has a line of small trees already planted in it. Is that part of your project?
Yeah. No, it isn't, but that's where I would use that fake parking lot to drop my daughter off, because she goes to preschool there. I think the school did that themselves. No,
Okay.
so that's not, yeah.
Oh, so that's not part of what you're proposing then?
No, this is the backfield where like the sports are played.
Well, that was
which is,
my second question. And looking at the shaded area that you're proposing in the far end of that, what's now an open field, does any of that shaded area intrude upon the useful playing fields that are back there? Because I have played frisbee back there, and it is a useful playing field.
For sure, it does not. And that area will be brought in so as to have more mower accessibility, but also not to interfere with any sledding hill stuff. So there's no trees on the bottom of the sledding hill. So the trees there will be pretty minimal. And no, the field is not, it does not impede that at all. I've confirmed that with the building and grounds and the school.
Okay, because I was unclear about the sledding hill, because it seemed to me like the area you were proposing was in the far back end, which just abuts the current forested area.
Yeah, there's two areas, there's two parcels. So
Okay.
there's an area by the parking lot there before you're going into the field, and that's the one that's going to be kind of minimized. And then it's the back that's, you know, owned by the town of Shelburne back there.
But that doesn't butt up against a sledding hill. That's just forest.
No. The other one doesn't butt up against it, but the other one could potentially be at the very bottom of a very fast sled ride, the way it's currently drawn. So it's going to be brought in a little.
Okay.
Rick?
I did walk it over the weekend, and I can see why it makes sense to do that. The area that's near the school is in a swale that apparently was put into direct drainage when that area was leveled. And I think with your modifications that you're talking about, I think it's a viable item.
All right, so we, as you said, as noted, on the town property, we certainly can authorize that, but for the school property, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I'm glad to see this, but otherwise there's general support from the school community.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of invasives back there.
Yep.
So the recommendation is to kind of leave like 20 feet and just to continue mowing between the two sections of trees because, if they start touching, the bittersweet's just going to spread. I mean, that's just something to keep in the back of the mind. I don't know what to do about it, but it's something of note.
Yeah.
I generally support what you're proposing as long as you're doing it in concert with the approval of the school community so that their activities and maintenance can continue.
Yeah, that's definitely a priority for sure.
All right. So with that, can we have a motion to allow the planting of trees on the town property for the tree planting permit as proposed through at this presentation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to
Well,
allow
can I add
Go right ahead.
to your motion just the friendly words contingent upon approval by the school committee,
Sure.
just so that we emphasize that we're working in mutual accord with them.
No, that's great.
Okay.
All right. So any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call this matter to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
myself is aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thanks so much. I'll send you the updated plan that I sent to the school committee and let you know how that meeting goes as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you for coming in and presenting. All right, before we go much further, I'm going to ask Mr. Sampson, Tom, please turn off your video. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. Our next appointment's at 6:30 with and our first topic of business is streetlights. So I'm going to hold that until 6:30 to combine both of those. Item B, Powell Gym HVAC project. John Walsh. John, are you here with us?
I am, sir.
Excellent.
Yes, so we have very good news. The commissioning is scheduled for tomorrow morning, starting at 7 a.m. It'll probably take all day and may actually have to go a little bit longer. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm crossing my fingers that it's not a freight train. But after tomorrow, when they're finished the completion, everything will be cleaned up. The staging will be removed, and we will have heating and cooling in the Cowell Gym, both in the gym as well as in the basement offices.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much for all the work you've done in moving this project forward. It's been
We've just learned that we won't be hearing from these folks for 50.
it's been something that we've been, looking to help reduce our carbon footprint and improve the heating at the Cowell, which has been an albatross for a long time regarding the amount of oil in the heating system that we've been trying to deal with.
Yeah, and we'll know fairly quickly how well it's doing its proposed job.
Excellent.
Excellent.
And assuming that it is working well, that will enable us to then phase out the current boiler that we got going there.
Yeah, my recommendation would be that we leave that in place at least through this winter.
Right.
Just in case there is a failure of one of the compressors or it's not capable of keeping the set temperatures. But all indications are that the equipment should be good to 20 to 25 below zero ability to extract heat at that level. And be able to dehumidify at the same time in the basement if we are setting the right channels. There'll be a learning curve with trying to figure out what those settings should be, but I think we'll have time to figure that out before it all goes forward.
Great. And I would add my second to Bob there. Thank you very much, John. You've been a great overseer for this project and bring a lot of expertise to the role.
Thank you. It's actually been a pleasure meeting the guys and they've been very professional. It has taken a little bit longer because of supply issues. But everything's been done professionally and I think tomorrow they'll do the cleanup and we should see everything pretty much back to working order.
Great.
Awesome. Joe, our town clerk, had some concern about some of the dust and debris that was on the election equipment downstairs. Do you know if that's going to be cleaned up as well, or is that something he'll have to bring people in to do?
Well, the whole that whole basement is a mess, but I have asked them to at least leave the areas broom clean. They do have a portable vacuum that they have proposed to bring in. It was an issue also in the food bank when some of the volunteers were moving stacks of food that had been below where the holes had to be drilled in order to move the refrigerant lines into the equipment. But it is something I have paid attention to and we'll make sure that at a minimum it's broom clean. Worst case, I have another vacuum I'll bring over myself.
Well, Joe's willing to, basically, once it's done, I think perhaps let Joe know it's been cleaned, if you would, so he can go up and check on it.
Sure.
All right, appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Anything else you'd like to, Rick? Any thoughts or questions?
Star, thanks.
No, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Excellent, thank you. Next order is West County Senior Service District Board of Managers. That's been appointees and that's still been tabled. Is there any movement on this, Terry?
At the last meeting, Andrew asked whether we had interested participants from other towns. At the moment, Shelburne has 4 interested candidates. Ashfield has 1 and Buckland has none. So until we identify at least 2 representatives from Ashfield and Buckland, they can't move forward with appointments.
Okay. So we'll just keep this on the table. Relocation of Veterans Memorial. I know there's been a bunch of movement on that. And Terry has helped coordinate DigSafe and things. What was the date they're planning to do the move?
Today, the foundation was poured at the library site and Negus and Taylor took the monument back to their shop. I believe they intend to clean it up and will let me know when they plan on doing the final installation.
Excellent.
Nice.
Any word from community preservation from the Attorney General?
Nothing yet.
All right. Timcast Memorial Association request to reactivate lease. We kind of took care of that when we met with Jim, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Any other old business outside of the streetlight, which I'm waiting for 6:30? All right. Moving on to new business. Did you folks have the opportunity to read the letter that Joe submitted?
Yes.
Any questions? Because I spoke with Joe for a lengthy period of time at the transfer station. And I can help kind of work things through. So in a nutshell, Joe, having been up there, is facing several challenges. And one is the increased duties of the transfer station attendant. There is a great deal of regards to battery collection, light bulb collection, sorting them out, proper storage, as well as a few other of those things. And then there's just dealing with the keeping the compactor compressed and room for additional trash, and monitoring the cardboard and the plastic, aluminum recycling. And that does not include the metal recycling and the hard plastics recycling that's also up there that the town is responsible for. And Joe has spoken with the solid waste folks, and they are saying that what Shelburne is seeing in a spike for how much traffic and junk and clutter and trash being brought to the transfer station is not unique to Shelburne. This is across the board. It seems that since COVID, people have decided to start clearing out everything that they tucked away and doing spring cleaning, for lack of better words. So, and then there's just the general dealing with the public and monitoring what goes into the dumpster, as well as getting, taking in cash and things. So he said that he doesn't have the time, and I figure it would take an additional 4 hours for him to be able to do all the side work of sorting the batteries and things. And he would feel that he was be able to catch up and be able to keep the system going more. And speaking with him a bit further, it became obvious that the transfer station position needs to have a second person up there for a variety of different reasons. Safety, for one, he is handling a large amount of cash during the course of the day. In terms of that, there's two medical reasons. We've had, not just recently, but over the years, there's been medical problems that have occurred with the transfer station attendant that required them to be either to go home or to go by ambulance, and having someone there is just a matter of safety. So in looking around at other towns, a lot of the other towns have two people at their transfer stations. Charlemont does, Coleraine does, other local communities do as well. And with that, we're seeking additional staffing at the transfer station, either for both Tuesday and Saturday, or Tuesday or Saturday, but some additional help to allow for those other things that need to happen. So that's kind of in a nutshell of what Joe was referring to and all the processes that go on. So thoughts, questions?
Couple of
Andrew?
questions, Bob, if I may. I'm a little bit unclear in your presentation. Are we talking about both expanding Joe's hours and hiring a second person, or one or the other of those things?
Joe really doesn't want to expand his hours. So.
So he wants to hire a second person to work with him.
Yes.
I see. Because currently there's another person also working at the transfer station, right?
We have several people that fill in. We have one of our highway department employees go up from 3 until closing on 7 on Tuesday. Because Joe only is working until 3 in the afternoon. And then Jim Stacy will cover for Joe at times.
And who's the other person who works on Saturday?
Carrie? I only know of Joe that works on Saturday.
Only Mr. Giard.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we were talking about Joe Fink.
No,
No.
no, Joe Fink comes in on Tuesday. He comes in at 10, 11, rather than coming in for 6:30 for his normal highway department shift. And then we'll cover we'll leave the highway department and then go over to the transfer station to finish off the shift that Joe only works until 3.
And Terry, what is the funding consequence of increasing the hours as proposed?
I would have to take a look at the budget and see whether or not we could handle hiring a second person for those 15 hours weekly. I think we would more than likely run out of funds at the end of the year, and it would require some form of a transfer. But I'll have a better idea after I speak with the accountant tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'd like to get the sort of picture of what this would mean in terms of ongoing addition to our overall budget as a town, in terms of, are we talking essentially about doubling the number of hours that we currently dedicate to the transfer station?
If we went with the full 15 hours for a second person, yes.
And is that what Joe is proposing?
He really wasn't proposing anything other than he said 4 hours he felt would help catch up, but never really came up with a plan on how to make that 4 hours happen. So in talking to him and looking around, it was myself and talking with Mark Shippey that we felt that it was probably, and I think I kind of had conversations with Terry as well, that we felt that a second person there would be the best solution.
And do we currently have any likely suspects of somebody who would step forward to do those 4 hours or more? Or would we have to go out? I mean, I'm sure we'd have to post it anyway, but I'm just curious whether there's anybody kind of waiting wings for that kind of job.
No, we don't. It's a niche market, for lack of better words, for somebody coming in to do that type of stuff.
Rick, do you have thoughts or questions?
I would support starting to look at it, find out if we can find a source to fund a second person. I think it makes sense. I go there regularly myself, and he's stretched pretty thin, and it's from the recycling end to the cardboard to the free store to the steel, which is way down at the gate. He's running around crazy. I think I don't think it's over the top to think about adding a second person for all the hours. And if we can't afford it, as many as we can. So I think we should look into it personally.
We're also one of the few transfer stations that sell labels at the site. Many cities and towns only sell them locally at stores or at town hall to take that responsibility away. It's just one more thing for them to juggle, making change, selling labels.
I have no objection to moving the label project into the local grocery stores or wherever seems convenient for people. I don't see that as being if that would help to lighten the load, I think that's a good step.
The stores would have to be willing to pay for the labels up front, buy them in bulk, and then sell them.
I think if we have a second person, that wouldn't really be needed. Even if we had a second person for half of the hours each of the 2 days. Every time I go, I hand him cash and he has to go in and make change and get the stickers, and a second person would certainly mitigate that.
I will
So-
report back at the next meeting regarding the potential financial impact and where the budget stands currently.
All right, thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
On the same letter from Joe, what are your thoughts on the free store?
When I was speaking to him about this free store, it is in need of maintenance and upkeep. And he reports it seems like more people leave stuff there than take stuff away. They view it as like, hey, coffee maker or whatever. So there seems to be more incoming than outgoing.
I apologize. I didn't notice that we are at the next appointment time, and we can discuss that when we have our next meeting and talk about the position.
Oh, no issues. So
Okay.
we give them an approximate time,
Okay,
except for actual public hearings, where we
okay,
have to start directly at a specific posted hour. We give a little extra leeway on the actual beginning. It would be on or about 6:30.
okay.
Bob, I would like to talk to the solid waste district about the free store, because it may be one of the requirements of Shelburne being eligible for recycling dividend funds. And we do rely on those funds annually to offset some of our costs.
That we're required to have a free store?
I want to verify whether we are required to have one. We get points for a multitude of services that we offer at the transfer station. I want to just make sure that the free store is not one of them before the board considers removing it.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, one suggestion there, if we are required to have it, is to authorize our attendants to just give it a good clean out every, at whatever interval seems appropriate, and just, if stuff is not moving, just move it on through, and rather than have it become just sort of a junk receptacle that makes it even less likely that people are going to take stuff if it's getting junkier and junkier.
That would need to be contingent on getting him some help, right? He's already feeling
Yeah.
overworked. Well,
No,
let's not
I
put that on
agree.
him.
I think those are linked together. But
Yeah.
if we do get some extra help, cleaning out the free store every so often would be a good way to make it a more attractive store, is to have new merchandise that people would come and look at.
Very true.
That's what retailers do. They move they rotate their merchandise.
Yes. Anything else until we hear back from a couple of questions that have come up as a result of this? Right, moving on. Streetlights. It was my hopes that this evening that I could get this to a point where the select board would authorize or vote to move this to an annual town meeting. And we've received a lot of input in regards to this. And then direct the Energy Committee at that point to create language for the warrant article for the annual town meeting, which would describe in detail on who would manage the streetlights, who would, the process of funding the streetlights, and so forth. But that has seemed to have gotten past us, and the cart was put way before the horse, and we now have a petition presented to us. So that petition for calling for a special town meeting makes a lot of this conversation moot in terms of whether or not the board does anything tonight, because we have to wait for the special town meeting petition for the signature verification and to see if it's a valid petition given its vagueness. So I personally at this time would like to table all discussions about the streetlights this evening until next meeting, September 11th. At that point, hold on, Andrew. At that point, we will have legal clarification on whether the, whether the signatures are valid and so forth. So that's where would have loved to have seen it go and where I'd like to see it go. And again, I'd like to remind everyone, this is not a public hearing. This is a discussion between the Finance Committee, Select Board, and the Energy Committee. And at this point, I'm going to limit it to the Select Board, given what I just presented. So Andrew, you had your hand up.
I guess I have a couple of questions, and one general thought is I'm in agreement with you, and I think my sense is that the Energy Committee may be also, though I can't confirm that, that this issue would be best discussed and resolved at town meeting. And my thought or question that I'll put to you, I was kind of hoping Joe Judd would be here, is whether or not if we as a board were to move tonight, that our intent and our preference is to put this on the warrant for town meeting, if that would be sufficient action to then incentivize the proponents of this special town meeting to rescind their petition.
That's very reasonable, Andrew. Thank you. Rick.
I agree 100%.
And that would
So-
avoid the cost and the time put into a special town meeting.
Yep.
If we could make that happen. I think I had a conversation with Joe Judd this afternoon where I sort of floated that idea to him and asked him, what are the mechanics involved in rescinding a citizen initiated petition? And he did not have an answer for me. So I'm still waiting to hear how you actually do that. Do you have to get all 296 signers to sign a new petition withdrawing the petition, or can it happen in a more efficient way than that?
Okay, excellent.
I think since we have, I'm sorry.
No, Terry had her hand, but Rick, go ahead.
I think since we don't have answers like that, what's the worst case scenario if we did vote tonight to put this before the voters and let the people decide at town meeting? And it turns out that that gets overridden with this petition, so be it. But so where's the harm in doing it anyway?
Terry?
When I spoke with Joe later this afternoon, he said he still had not heard back from the state. He has yet to begin the certification process, nor has he date stamped the petition, because as of late this morning, a gentleman brought more signatures in. So it's really unclear at this point whether or not the petition can be rescinded before it's officially received by the select board or not. If the petition is not rescinded, the board is obligated to hold a special regardless of what you vote this evening. But the town clerk is concerned about the ambiguous language used on the petition. It's not really clear what would be voting on.
Well, that was the other part of my conversation with Joe Judd this afternoon, was what are the mechanics involved in posting warrant articles to a citizen initiated special town meeting. And he did not have a full answer to that, but because it was not clear whether those could only be posted by citizen initiative or whether the select board could also post articles onto that kind of town meeting warrant. But he said that at minimum, it would require 100 signatures to post a warrant article onto that special town meeting. So I'm in agreement with Rick that I think we should vote tonight simply to place this issue on the annual town meeting warrant, and then see how the rest of it unfolds. My preference would be to see if we can rescind the special without having to go to the trouble of organizing it and holding it. But if worse comes to worse, we could hold it and then post a warrant article onto that warrant saying, we, the voters, would like to discuss this at annual town meeting. and in effect, pass over the unclear language that's currently in the petition.
Finance Committee.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So our thoughts on this at the moment?
Yes.
So we weren't planning on taking a vote or giving our input on this at the moment anyway. We weren't going to weigh in. And our feeling is at this time, the document falls short of the necessary information for us to make an informed decision for the taxpayers. And if we can say, I'd like to see it go to annual town meeting, to have more time to flesh that out.
All right, thank you. Energy Committee. Anyone like to speak to our thoughts?
Sorry, I was muted. I have no problem with the idea of this being pushed back to the annual town meeting. It will take a lot of work on the part of the individuals who collected 290 plus signatures to change from the special town meeting to the annual town meeting. But if we know that this is the track that you would be willing to go, I think it's worth seeing if we can indeed rescind the petition.
All right, it appears that all three boards are on the same page. Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to float one other idea, just in the interest of addressing the concern that the Finance Committee raised. not having enough information to fully consider the Energy Committee's proposal. And that would be, if we cannot rescind the special town meeting, one useful purpose of that meeting might be to authorize or direct the select board to authorize the use of ARPA money to essentially conduct the audit needed to provide the information to give a more complete picture of what the choices are in front of the town. So that's the only utility. I mean, we could certainly wait and do that at annual town meeting, but that would slow the process down also. So that's just another thought in the mix. But in general, I think having the voters consider this at town meeting is a good idea. But having them come to that question with as much information as possible would be the goal between now and then. So that's one of the things I would put before you two, is to say, how do we make a well-informed decision at annual town meeting?
Right now, we have about $28,000 in ARPA funds, as noted previously. We're kind of holding that in reserve until all our projects have been completed that we've designated for ARPA. How are we standing with those projects, Terry, in regards to completion?
I would have to go through the checklist, get a listing from the accountant as to what's been paid. I certainly could have that information at the next meeting where the ARPA balance stands.
So we can kind of address that at the next meeting, Andrew, and kind of do the vote for the placing this article on the annual town meeting.
Okay. I will
That
move that
works?
we do that.
I would
All right,
second.
is there a second?
I second it.
There's a motion made and seconded to bring the topic of owning the town-owned streetlights to be moved to the annual town meeting for decision, at which point the article will identify funding sources and the options as available. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call this matter to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself is aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, folks, for that you put in on this. Continuing along. Is there any other business outside of the next upcoming September 11th meeting at 5:30? Any other business? All right, correspondence. We have a letter from Kim Driscoll, Lieutenant Governor, Community Compact Program. Terry, I think I read it, but I can't recall.
Every year we get a reminder of grant opportunities through the Community Compact Program. This past year, we applied for a grant under best practices for an updated ADA transition plan. So that excludes the town from applying in this coming year. I don't believe we need any municipal fiber enhancements. I've not heard of anything under efficiency and regionalization, and unless the police department has IT needs, we're currently set in that area as well. So I would encourage each of you to take a look at the list. You can click on the links that are in this letter. And if you have any project ideas, let me know.
Thank
Terry,
you.
question.
Oh,
Yes.
The cover sheet from the Lieutenant Governor made it sound like there were just those four choices. Are there other choices in addition to those?
There are choices under each of these categories. For
Okay, 'cause
example,
it seemed like
last
in
year,
previous years, we had a wider menu of options to choose from.
definitely, yes, they have pared down the number of categories this year.
Okay, because I didn't really see anything of great interest at this point.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Last year, LED streetlight conversion was a category. It's no
Right.
longer listed this year.
Right. Okay.
All right, moving on. Public comment. John, you have your hand up. Are you wanting to say something?
I just wanted to, recall that there was one more thing I needed to mention about the Cowell Gym project, which is that we will still need to have building inspections and electrical inspections from FERCog before we can sign off on the entire project. And that should happen fairly quickly after tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to make public comment at this time? All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself is aye. Thank you, folks, for everything, and have a good evening. Be safe.